Hi, Tobias. How are you?
Hi, Nancy. I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for joining us on the Vegan Pulse and for sharing some of the information that we will get to hear here shortly. First of all, let's start with where you're located.
I'm in a very small town in Belgium. We used to live in a city, but now we live in the countryside because my girlfriend wanted a lot of animals, a sort of sanctuary actually. So we had to move outside of town for that. And so now we have a small sanctuary on a foresty domain.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, can we move on to your journey to veganism?
Sure. I'm 51 now, and I think my journey started when I was 10 years old when I realized I shouldn't eat animals because I love them. And I couldn't see the difference between our dog and a cow in moral terms. And that's when I concluded, okay, I should be a vegetarian. At least this is a long time ago now. And I wasn't able to become a vegetarian because I loved eating meat so much, and so kept eating meat for 10 years or so, and then finally at university became vegetarian and then vegan. So this is 25. I've been vegan for 25 years now. And then doing my master's thesis at university about the human animal relationship, I became really fascinated with the topic of yeah, animals and people and the way we relate. And by that time, I couldn't imagine any other job than an animal rights job. And as soon as I graduated from university, I looked for a job like that, but there was very little to be found in Belgium. So I went to United States to do 6 months of internships at PETA and other animal rights organizations. And then when I came back, I started my own organization, which is now the Belgian division of ProVeg. And ProVeg, I'm also, as the international organization, I'm also the co-founder of. So yeah, that's a bit my journey, starting 35 years ago, I think, and yeah, been in the movement for 25 years now, and still active, and still this is the thing I'm the most passionate about in my life, helping animals. Also because it's so ignored by many people, and there's so much to do and such an opportunity for doing good in this world by helping animals. So there you are.
Okay. So you said that you have a small sanctuary. Like, what types of animals do you have?
So it's mostly chickens. It's my girlfriend who rescues chickens who get here from industrial farming, egg-laying hens. And she gets in about 700 chickens a year, which are then adopted out to people who want one. And a lot of times it's crippled and sick chickens, so she first has to heal them, patch them up, and then they are ready for adoption, or some stay here if they become favorites of her. And so we also have 60 chickens of our own, and also 4 dogs, 5 cats, 2 pigs, turkeys, ducks. Yeah, and people can actually stay here. We have a cabin on our property, so the website is featheryforest.be. So feathery from the feathers, featheryforest.be.
Oh, sounds great. And thank you for doing that because chickens, I think, are the worst that they have it the worst, you know.
Yeah, they have the worst lives of maybe all the land animals at least, and also there's so many of them because they're a lot smaller than cows. So if you want the same amount of meat from chickens that you get from one cow, you need about 250 chickens. So every time that people switch from red meat to white meat, which is what many people are doing for the environment or for health reasons, they actually are going to create much more suffering. Yeah.
Wow. Now, with ProVeg International, which you co-founded, and it's operating across multiple countries, how do you tailor your advocacy like to different cultural and economic places?
Yeah, so we're active in 15 countries, and of course we have an overhauling strategy and principles, but we try to adapt them where necessary to whatever is valid and useful and appropriate locally. And for that, we of course work with people from the country itself. So our local chapters are set up by people from that particular country, so they know what is appropriate over there.
Okay. And you did write a book, How to Create a Vegan World, a Pragmatic Approach. Can you talk about that and the practical strategy for vegan
Mhm.
advocacy that you have written there?
Yeah. So it's a book for people who are already convinced, for vegans, vegetarians, animal rights people. And I try to lay out a map, a strategy towards a vegan world. And strategy is illustrated by, well, by literally an illustration of the path, the road towards Veganville. And Veganville is a small city in this metaphor. It's a city on top of a mountain, and we want everybody to live there, but you have to undertake the trek towards Veganville, and the trek is uphill, and it's uphill because in reality it's not the easiest option, it's not the default option or the way of least resistance. And I distinguish several things. I distinguish motivating people to start that trek. Like, and this is the call to action. Will you say like go vegan, or will you say maybe something else to motivate them, something lighter, maybe like participate in veganuary or something? I talk about the whys, like what arguments do we use to motivate people? Is that just animals, or can we also use, and I argue that we can also use, or we should always also use environmental, health, and other arguments. And then a very important part is in the metaphor, this is like all the resting places, the eating places, the hotels, the restaurants along the way, they make it easier for people to undertake that trek towards Veganville. And so in reality, that is well, creating a facilitating environment and having enough attention for all the things that make it easier for people. So because we could talk and talk and talk and motivate and motivate and motivate people for hours and days. But if it's not made easy enough, most of them will not do much. So we have to take care of creating alternatives so that it becomes easier to that for them, so that they need less motivation to do what we want them to do. I also focus about trying to keep people in the movement so that they don't slide back, or vegans don't slide back, or activists don't burn out. Um, and I also focus on communication towards non-vegans, like how are we going to talk to them? Is that in a guiltifying way, or is that in an upbeat, motivating way? So my strategy is always pragmatic, which means that on the whole, I suggest that we use whatever works, we use whatever arguments that works, we use whatever ask that works, and I oppose that to being very, let's say, orthodox or idealistic, and this is the idea of no, it can only be done one way, and we have to talk about the animals, and it has to be an abolitionist way. I'm very much in favor of looking at what works, and I don't care about orthodoxy or ideology. I'm always trying to think, what would the pig in the crate want from us? And the only thing she wants from us is that we do what gets her out of the crate, and she's not interested in anything else.
Exactly. The animals don't care how you go vegan. They just would like you to go vegan.
Yeah.
So you were instrumental in launching initiatives like Thursday Veggie Day in Ghent. So what lessons did you learn about doing that, and how can other people replicate that in other cities?
Yeah, this is a long time ago, but that was when we convinced our city to go to install an official vegetarian day a week every week. And I think the important message is here that trying to create institutional change, working with institutions, and an institution can also be a restaurant, but higher up it can be a business, a cafeteria, a local commune, a secretary of health, local secretary of health or environment or whatever. That is the probably the biggest impact most individuals can have. So the lesson here is not to focus too much, not to waste too much time with that one uncle or brother that you really want to make vegan, and they're maybe almost vegan, but you want to go at them the 100%. And I think it's a waste of time. I think that if we have the capacities and the opportunities, then it's much better to talk to people who, I mean, your uncle or your brother may be an impactful person, of course, but generally try to look at where we can talk to people that have decision power to create more impact. And for instance, a cafeteria owner or chef, they will have an impact on the menu of the hundreds or thousands of people that eat there. So it's much more important to talk to them than it is to talk to your uncle of 70 years old. Yeah, look for where the impact is, and then look for a way that yeah, make sure that these people can listen to you. And for instance, that means that if it's somebody who's like very much professionally very much into environmental stuff, then talk to them about the environment, and don't necessarily talk about animals because just animals is your thing, like you have to talk about what people are open to. You don't have to talk about what necessarily passionates you, or is the most important to you. What is most important about communication is the way the message arrives, and what people are going to do with your message. Yeah.
So kind of read the room, because some people, like you said, can be passionate, like myself and yourself, be passionate about the animals, but you're not gonna reach them with that because they have a disconnect. But if you talk about something like climate change that they might be impassioned about, then that might make the difference, or health. And then maybe once they're there, they're more open to hearing more about the rest of the
Yeah.
aspects of veganism.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is always to look for what will work. It could be the animals at some point or in some situations, but when you know it's not, then try something else. And indeed, like you say, we know from research that a lot of people start going vegan for completely different reasons. That there could be an allergy, could be I don't know what. I once heard a story about a family who was at a vegan fair, and they were there and interested in veganism because one day in the past they were looking for a recipe for a cake, but they didn't have eggs or milk in the fridge, and so they were googling for cake recipe without eggs or milk, and this is how they got interested in it. So it come from all kinds of angles and backgrounds. It doesn't need to start with the animals, but hopefully it ends with the animals at least.
Right. So ProVeg did receive the United Nations Momentum for Change Award, and you still work closely with the UN, Food and Environmental Agencies.
Yeah, we have UN observer status, and we have some programs together with the UN, and we participate in the um, in the international COP meetings. So yeah, we have a better position than many NGOs in terms of reaching those levels or influence, having some impact, some influence on those levels.
So that is wonderful news to hear that at least someone is working with the United Nations, and to change the food system. And every change, every small change is a step forward, is what I always say. So the goal
Yeah,
is no animal
absolutely.
exploitation, but we got to get steps to get there.
Yeah, this end goal is still quite far away. It's not a marathon, it's an ultra marathon, and we have to take what we can get and see where we can progress. And hopefully, with every step that we progress, more steps will follow. And along the way, we normatize eating plant-based, and we denormatize or don't normalize, sorry, eating meat. So we have to show that it's not normal, and it's not necessarily the best option, and it's not the default option. And so that's I think one important thing that we have to do to make people see that yeah, it's not necessarily so normal or natural to always eat animal products, and question them and problematize them.
And especially in this day and age where, climate change is affecting the soil, everything. I mean, all these
Hmm.
climate events that are happening, and animal agriculture adding to the fact that it's depleting our soil, poisoning our water and air, and that we need to make that more of a focal point that, look, this is what animal agriculture is doing. And soon we're not going to have soil to plant, water to drink, and air to breathe. So it's that really what you want to do? Leave a planet that is destroyed for younger generations, your kids, your kids.
Hmm. Yeah, and it would be good to at some point have the whole environmental movement agree with us that and campaign with us. I mean, this is starting to happen. It's much more so much more the case than when I started. Like now, organizations like Greenpeace know about this issue and they are campaigning against intensive animal agriculture. So slowly but surely we're getting to a higher awareness around that topic at least.
um, exactly. And one other thing, and if you speak up, right? So if you have, like for myself, sometimes I'll get an email from, I don't know, the Cancer or the Heart Association, and I email them back and I ask, are you promoting a plant-based diet? And sometimes they answer, sometimes they don't, but they'll say no. And I'm like, well, I can't get on board with you if you're not, if you're not promoting something that is actually going to help, because you're not walking the talk. And I think if enough people started saying that, maybe they could get a clue. Like, first of all, if you're having those kinds of events, like COP, for example, they should be serving plant-based foods.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the lesson here or the takeaway here is that most vegans can do so much more to we shouldn't believe that it ends with veganism. It begins there. That's where it begins. And actually like in comparison with our personal diet or personal advocacy, it's much more impactful. So that's where we should focus our efforts, not on being the purest vegan you can be, but on the most effective one, the best communicating one. That is a very important aspect of being vegan. And also, actually, you don't have to be vegan to help animals, obviously. You can also do that when you're non-vegan, and we should allow non-vegans also to help animals and not tell them like, oh, you're a hypocrite because you talk about helping animals but you're still eating meat. No, just accept that they're already helping animals at least, and that is a very important part of what a person, what an individual can do.
A very good point. So thank you again, Tobias, for being on the Vegan Pulse. Is there any last words that you want to tell our viewers, plus give your website information, so that way, and I'll have it attached to this podcast when
Yeah.
it comes out, so people can contact or be involved.
So my personal blog is Tobias Leenaert, so my name .substack.com. So that's a Substack blog. ProVeg.com is website of our organization. Featheryforest.be is our sanctuary. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's listening and who's making the world a better place for animals or for the environment.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.